Hello and welcome to our latest event from East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce. This is stunningly titled by Simon, Back on Track. And it is there to be the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce's Rail Supply Chain Conference. We're delighted to be able to bring you a stellar line of speakers, including our own Minister for Rail, Minister for HS2, Andrew Stephenson from the Department of Transport, and then representatives from HS2, Transport for the North and Network Rail, who I'll introduce formally shortly before each of their presentations. I have to say officially that the views expressed in this webinar do not necessarily represent the views of the Chamber of Commerce, and all facts were believed to be correct at the time of recording on the 3rd of November 2020. We can see the point in that with the way that the business impact is changing within 24-hour periods these days. We've got to be absolutely certain what moment we're speaking at. So why are we here? Well, you know as well as I do that East Lancashire is a huge hotbed of advanced manufacturing and construction, but that sector, as well as every other, but especially that sector in the civil aviation space, is really impacted by the whole of the COVID restrictions that are placed on the whole of our lifestyles, with the cessation of aviation and the cutting back in overseas supplies of automotive goods, and the whole of that manufacturing panoply of things that we're so brilliant at. So we want to make sure that our advanced manufacturing success is fully supported in every way that it can be. Now, one of the things that we were hearing about just before we got to lockdown, the first time around in March, was the government's levelling up agenda and the desire that we were, feeling really strongly from Westminster to invest in the north of England, and especially in the rail development with HS2, with Transport for the North's Northern Powerhouse Rail, and all of the associated investments in there, the Transport for the North Northern budget, which impacted on all of the rail and in fact the road network, supporting our businesses and enabling us to transport our freight locally in the area and overseas. It's even more important when you look at what's been supporting the economy over the last 3 months. The manufacturing index figures show that it's the manufacturers that are supporting the economy, the logistics sector, and exporting, which has held strong in Lancashire throughout the whole of the coronavirus crisis. But we need to make sure that we're keeping that advanced manufacturing sector alive and making sure, especially that our civil aviation jobs are still there when the sector starts to recover in however many years that is. You listen to Rolls-Royce chief executive, he's saying 3 to 5 years. So one of the ways in which we felt that could be done was supporting our advanced manufacturers in diversifying into new and growing sectors for the area. So we could see this levelling up budget and this rail investment to come as being a major plank of that support. So we wanted to work with our partners, very long-term partners, with HS2, with the Northern Powerhouse Rail team at Transport for the North, and with Network Rail, to make sure that that supply chain link for you is open, so that you know how to supply into those businesses, you know how to be the northern end of their supply chain and really get the work and the investment and the jobs created into our local communities. So that's a very strong message back to government. I have to say that Andrew, as our local rail minister, Minister for HS2, has always been extremely supportive of the fact that that local supply chain needs to be created locally. So really, we're not here to campaign at you for that, Andrew, but to campaign with you and to say, show us what we need to do to help you with that, and to make these connections as early as we can between HS2, between Northern Powerhouse Rail and Transport for the North, and Network Rail with our individual businesses, so you can start to be part of their supply chain now. So without further ado, I'll hand on to our first speaker, very much to kick off and to introduce the whole of this feeling of trying to create our northern supply chain into the rail network. We have Andrew Stephenson, who's the Minister of State for the Department for Transport, previously Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Department for International Development, and of course also very much focused in BEIS on advanced manufacturing, and he is of course our MP for Pendle. Andrew, take it away. It's great to see you here and we're glad you're with us, and hopefully this is a topic close to your heart.
Well, thanks, Miranda, and it's great to be able to join you. It feels like every time I come to a chamber event, I'm wearing a different hat because I've had a fair few different ministerial portfolios, over the past few years, but I've held this post since February now, and I'm just keen to kind of give people a bit of an insight into what HS2 is up to and how local businesses can play their part in delivering this transformational infrastructure project. Talk a little bit about that and some of those opportunities, how you can become involved. It really is, this is something that has been a lot talked about before the first lockdown. Obviously, the Prime Minister gave his seal of approval to the scheme still progressing back in February. But so much has happened since then, and actually it's one of those things that we're not really talking about. We gave the go-ahead to all the main work civil contractors to start constructing the railway in April. The official launch of construction by the Prime Minister was on the Birmingham Interchange site in September. There's a huge amount of work already underway, and while some of the work is still classed as enabling work, that's included the installation of huge bridges across motorways. This is a truly massive infrastructure project with about a £40 billion spend just on phase one of the railway. So really keen to tell you a little bit more about it, but more importantly, keen to answer any of your questions you have and try and make this as interactive as possible. Phase one of the railway, which is the section from London to the West Midlands, is going to really ramp up construction now over the next few years, and we're expecting the phase one contractors to generate about 22,000 jobs between them. But of course, more importantly than that, most of the work is going to be contracted to businesses the length and breadth of the UK, and we need firms to know what opportunities are there, what things are going to be tendered for in the future, and how you can bid into and become part of that supply chain. Even if you've never been involved in the rail sector before, there will be a huge range of opportunities coming up, which hopefully you will, as Miranda said, learn more about later on in this session. I'm glad to say that already local businesses across the northwest of England are benefiting from HS2 contracts. It was just, I think, last month, HS2 signed off the contract with Bolton-based Booth Industries. That was a £36 million contract for high pressure safety doors, and they're going to be constructing 300 units at a new purpose-built factory in Bolton, creating 50 jobs. So just one example of many of the companies actually far away from the line of route who are already getting involved. Of course, that's good news for Bolton, it's good news for the Northwest, it's good news for the UK. And Booth Industries join a cohort now of 103 firms across the northwest of England who are already winning contracts and involved in the supply chain. Of those 103 businesses, 32 are micro businesses with fewer than 10 employees, and 25 are small businesses. So we're not just looking for main work contractors, we are looking for a huge range of businesses to get involved here, supplying all the different components that will be needed by the railway. We're hoping that this will obviously be a huge catalyst for job creation. As I said earlier, the thousands of jobs will be created, 22,000 roles just on phase one. But phase 2A, which is the section from the West Midlands to Crewe, we're hoping to get royal assent with that passing through Parliament before Christmas. And then we'll be getting on with, again, enabling work before moving through to full-scale construction of the line through to Crewe. So HS2 is coming, it's open for business, and it's bringing with it golden opportunities for the rail supply sector. And local businesses in East Lancashire, I'm sure, have the expertise to help build this railway. So I'm really keen for this to be a good discussion. I just wanted to touch on one or two other points. Again, Miranda mentioned about Network Rail and some of the contracts. The government, if you look at the planned investment programme into the conventional rail network alongside HS2, we are going to need a huge number of new recruits. We're going to need a huge number of components, particularly in the north, in a level we've never seen before. The biggest upgrade to the conventional rail network is going to be the Transpennine Routes upgrade, the main east-west connectivity across the north of England. We've already announced a £589 million work package on that, and that's just the start of what will become a multi-billion-pound contract as we improve those connections between places like Manchester and Leeds. And of course, the network is in every part of the region. There's 528 stations in the north of England, and we're spending £13 billion improving the conventional rail network. We've got the New Stations Fund talking about where there are opportunities to create new stations. We've got the £500 million pledge for beaching reversals and looking at things like Fleetwood and, dare I say it, Colne to Skipton and other opportunities here to restore lines where there is a business case for doing so. And of course, as I say, the Transpennine route upgrade itself will become the biggest rail investment in the country. So there's a huge number of opportunities here for you to become involved in with both Network Rail and with HS2. I know that Robin from HS2 Limited is going to be talking about this in more detail shortly. So I just wanted to say, I think HS2 will definitely inject some more competition in the industry. I think it will definitely attract some people who've never supplied to the rail industry before into the industry. But it will bring with it endless opportunities. We need everything from tunnel boring machines through to bridges. And it will be down to the strength of the UK supply chain that we'll be able to progress with what is the largest infrastructure project in Europe, despite COVID. We are still getting on with this. We are getting on with a project to level up our country. And this is a project which lots of people say, oh, well, you know, passenger numbers might dip. What is the case? Everybody's now on Zoom or Teams or the thing. This is a project for the long term. This is a project which everything we're looking at, every component that's going in, is supposed to be lasting 120 years. This is building something which will outlive all of us. So this is a truly transformational project. It is a project that will connect up all the biggest cities of the country. And it is a project which will regenerate communities and change lives. So I would love more East Lancashire firms to play a part in that. Anything I can do to support you, getting more people from HS2 in, working more closely with Miranda and the Chamber, I'm very keen to do that, because this has to be a project that benefits the whole country. It can't just be a project that benefits the cities that are connected by the project. It needs to benefit everyone. So we've got to ensure it benefits East Lancashire. And that conversation today, I see this as only the start of a process, part of the debate about levelling up and what more we can do to get local businesses to win some of these exciting opportunities to supply into HS2. That's all I'm keen to say. I'm keen to answer your questions, listen to your comments, concerns, anything I can respond to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. If you would like to ask a question, please do put it into the chat conversation, or if you want and you know how to do it, raise your little blue hand on the raise hand button. If you click so you can see all of the participants, the button at the bottom that says participants, that then gives you an option to raise your hand and I can see that, or type your question into chat so that we know that you're there. And I will just ask Andrew some questions until if any appear. It's brilliant to hear what you're saying. I know that you're behind this in the same way that we are at the Chamber in terms of trying to get as much of this investment, not just to give the North a way to ship freight around the country, as it so should, but also to drive the success of our local businesses who can be part of this supply chain. So it's really important. One of our businesses I know, I don't know if they're here today, I know they're intending to come, is Tensar, and they are already a really strong HS2 supplier, and they're you know, really experts at leading the field in not just the kind of manufacturing technologies which we need for HS2, but also really cutting edge sustainability technologies that will help make the environmental impact of HS2 even better, which is great. What can we do to help you strengthen the case for the levelling up investment to come as fast as possible, so that we aren't just building at certain points in the UK, but possibly trying to build all over the place at the same moment? How can we help you strengthen that argument?
So something I've heard loud and clear from the business community is about certainty. If businesses want to become involved in rail supply, or even if they're already involved in rail supply, they want certainty. They don't want boom and bust in terms of orders. And with HS2, we really have an opportunity to deliver that. Phase 1 construction is now underway. As I say, phase 2A from the West Midlands to Crewe, we're expecting royal assent from Parliament this year, but that means we'll be starting the main work civil kind of construction of the phase 2A line route in about 3 years' time. By about the time a lot of contractors can move away from phase 1 onto 2A. And then we've started to do the design refinement consultation now, the western leg, taking the line from Crewe into Manchester, which again is running about 3-4 years behind the 2A section. So hopefully you're going to see a pipeline here of investment, which will allow businesses that win work to supply on phase 1, not just it being a one-off order, but then being able to supply ongoing as different parts of this network are created and it is extended. Something I didn't mention in my opening remarks is the integrated rail plan. This was announced by the Prime Minister in February. The integrated rail plan is looking at all the major transport investments across the north of England, whether it be phase 2B of HS2, Trans-Pennine route upgrade, Northern Powerhouse Rail, all these different investments, looking at them and saying, okay, how do we deliver them in the best way? How do we sequence these massive investments so we don't have boom and bust, so we have a good pipeline, so we can work hand in glove with the business community, and also so we can deliver the benefits to people in the north of England as soon as possible. So the integrated rail plan is underway. We're still expecting to get feedback on that in the next few weeks. The government will respond as soon as we can to it, but we hope that will give then people a good idea of what we're planning for the next, not just 5 years, but the next 10, 15, 20 years in terms of rail investment. And all of the current plans and all of the current focus is on delivering these major projects in the Midlands and the North. So the opportunities, therefore, for northern businesses to get involved in that are immense.
You're absolutely right about the need for certainty. If you were a firm that was looking at taking a new departure into rail, that's exactly what you'd want, is a long-term plan of knowing that you've got a contract for future supply with Network Rail and with HS2 and with Transport for the North, so that you can see that future pipeline. So that is really important. It's also really important that the government seems to now have changed its way of deciding whether things go ahead, like for instance the Skipton Colne opening of that beaching line, and basing it on a business case, because that gives us an understanding of how to give you the ammunition to do that. You know, we can go out and talk to businesses about, if that line were open, what would you send on it? You know, so we can help generate that business case. So that's a nice logical way to influence what's happening. We've got a question from Martin Hill, who says, how much is social value a consideration in the awarding of contracts?
So I think I will parry that question to the expert, who's going to say more about contracting. But what I would say is, at the moment, we have to abide by all the competition laws and everything else, and we cannot be biased towards British suppliers. Although we've managed to award 98% of the contracts to British suppliers. We are looking at across government at the moment, the Treasury and the Cabinet Office, UK procurement rules, and how we can ensure things like nationally significant infrastructure projects do actually have a bias towards British manufacturers, and therefore social value and embedded carbon and a whole range of other kind of issues which are really important. At the moment, as I say, we are bound by the current rules and we have to operate within that framework. But we're really keen to work with people early to give you a heads up as to what we're going to be procuring for, when we're going to be procuring it, and the kind of specifications that we need. And by doing that, we hope that more companies will be able to think, that's something we could do. Why don't we get involved in that? I have this debate quite often about the amount of UK steel content. in HS2, because again, there is a lot of political controversy over where's the steel going to come from. And at the moment, to date, the big bridges that are being lifted into place in the West Midlands at the moment are being made by a company in the northeast of England, Cleveland Bridge, and brought down. There's lots of other steel being procured from Wales and other parts of the United Kingdom. So the UK steel sector is doing pretty well. What we can't stand up and say is we're going to buy 100% British, because it is a competitive tendering process. But we're very keen to work with all of you in advance to say, look, this is the kind of opportunities that are coming up. This is the specifications we will need. Is it something that you feel you're able to bid for? Because as I say, to date, we have had quite a good deal of success in terms of getting UK companies to bid for the work and win the work.
Thank you. Yes, as Simon's reminded me, I should have asked Martin to unmute and put it himself. Martin, if there's the opportunity to put your question also to Robin, if Robin needs to explore with you a little bit more about the social value, I'm sure we can do that. You'll see social value more and more in all of the contracting procedures that you've now got to undergo. I know we're seeing it in all the ones that we're talking to people about, and it's no longer just a sort of tick box thing. People actually do want to see the realistic sort of impact on the local community and and also on the environmental and sustainability front. It's no longer just a tick box. It really does need to be quality contribution into that front. So thank you very much to Andrew for introducing us all to us this concept and really giving us the full-throated support from government that I know that you have, but that we want to really drive this meeting, but also this initiative going forward to make sure that our local firms are part of the long-term supply chain for rail. And we're seeing that in terms of not just the business coming into the area, but also as a way of stimulating new skills that our young people can go into, and new cutting edge expertise we can develop in the advanced manufacturing field for use in so many businesses. So it's great to see you here. Please stay if you can, although I'm sure your timetable doesn't allow you to be with us for the whole event, but it's wonderful that you're here. And please call on us when we can help you strengthen your call in government for the kind of things that you know that we want to see. We will give you the business ammunition to do that if we can possibly do it. So it's brilliant to see you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you. And to move on, very appropriately, to hear now from Robin Lappish, the Supply Chain Manager, HS2 Limited. And Robin is responsible for delivering a market and supply chain stakeholder engagement across the HS2 project, with a specific focus on leading supply chain management for the HS2 rolling stock and railway systems programs. And I know Robin has brought with him one of his suppliers as well. So we're hearing from a business who's involved in supplying into the supply chain. So thank you very much, Robin, and it's good to see you here too.
Thanks, Miranda, and a very warm welcome to the HS2 session. Good afternoon to everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. So I'm Robin Lappish. I'm a supply chain manager for HS2 Limited, and thanks to Miranda and the team for the kind invitation to join you this afternoon. And I've spent the last 6 years helping to deliver this once-in-a-lifetime project. And of course, HS2, as you've heard from Andrew, is a project of national importance to the UK. The skills and experiences of companies across the Northwest will be needed to help achieve our vision. And in fact, of the 103 companies that Andrew mentioned who have delivered work for us across the Northwest, 74% of those are SMEs. So SMEs will be very much at the heart of delivering this railway. And in fact, one of the great privileges of this job is when we get to see the tangible benefit of the work that we do. And I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Jenkinson of Booth Industries, as mentioned by Andrew just now, to talk about his new £36 million contract to support our railway systems category. So that will just follow in sort of 20 minutes or so after I've spoken. So to help you identify and to access opportunities, today I want to give you 3 things. Firstly, an overview and an update on HS2. Secondly, an update on our procurement programme. And thirdly, what you can do to engage with us. So if we move on the slide, why HS2? Well, The case for HS2 is based on 3 C's, capacity, connectivity, and carbon. And despite COVID-19, the strategic case for HS2, more capacity on our railways, better connectivity across the Midlands and the North, and cutting carbon are all highly likely to remain relevant to the UK and its legal commitment to achieve net zero by 2050. And then more immediately, HS2 is uniquely placed to support the UK's green economic recovery, creating some 22,000 jobs all over the UK and providing opportunities for many thousands of businesses. And in particular, if you're a business that can help us to innovate to reduce carbon during a build program and improve our efficiency and productivity of construction, then we want to hear from you. And I know there's a fantastic wealth of capability amongst people on the call today. So moving on, why are we doing this? So we're bringing Britain closer together. HS2 will transform the way that we think about traveling around Britain. With the faster journeys, that will effectively shrink our distances, making it easier to move around for work and leisure and bringing businesses, families and friends closer together, helping Britain to become more productive and businesses to reach new clients and hire new people. Here on the screen, you can see the Y-shaped route of HS2 and some of the journey time benefits for the Northwest. If we move on the slides, just to draw upon this in a bit more detail, this map shows the location of the manufacturers, suppliers, and centres of research and innovation for the aerospace sector. If you look at the cluster in the Northwest, an alliance of over 200 aerospace companies, and indeed Lancashire has some 15% of British aerospace jobs, I understand. And then you look at the cluster in the West Midlands, which includes the likes of Rolls-Royce, the suppliers of aircraft control systems in Birmingham, Wolverhampton and Coventry. The journey time between Preston and Lancashire and the new HS2 station at Birmingham Interchange in the West Midlands will just be 50 minutes. 50 minutes, twice as fast as the current train journey time and 3 times faster than taking the car. And what this does is this will allow manufacturers, suppliers, researchers to collaborate more easily, more frequently and more productively. And I recognise this is a difficult time for the aerospace sector, particularly in civil aerospace, as mentioned at the outset. But what I say to companies in this sector is that you have the skills and the capabilities that we need in the rail and construction industry. So we want to work with you to see how we can best import that capability and know-how into HS2. In many ways, I believe the future of construction is in manufacturing. The more that we can do in a remote factory environment, remote from site, the better, because we know that is safer, we get better quality outcomes, and importantly, the more of HS2 that we can actually manufacture off-site, the less impact that will have on the communities along the line of route, and that's absolutely crucial for us. So I see manufacturing as being really central to this project as we move forward. So if we may move on, I just want to give you a flavour for the scale of what we're doing on phase 1, which is the section from the West Midlands down to London. We're now constructing phase 1. As Andrew said, on the 4th of September, we marked the official start of the main construction following 3 years of preparatory works. And we're working to strict guidelines to make sure the work that needs to happen now can happen safely in the light of current circumstances. But the scale of the work ahead of us on phase 1 is frankly breathtaking. Although HS2 isn't the longest high-speed railway in the world, it is very intricate with a high volume of complex civil engineering required to link city centre to city centre and to navigate the dense web of existing roads, railways and utilities. We've also designed the railway to minimise its impact by pushing it deep into the ground in many areas, hence the huge volume of earthworks, particularly cuttings and tunnels. If we move on, we'll explore a little bit about the key technical features of the railway. HS2 will be a very high-speed metro-style operation with high frequencies, small headways, and low station dwell times. So our infrastructure must be extremely reliable and resilient, able to cope with very high tonnages, amongst the highest in the world for any high-speed railway, and of course, a changing climate. We've seen the impacts of climate change on our existing rail system. So we need to create something that's resilient to that. This will require high levels of automation and precision of construction and engineering, particularly in our systems engineering space. Increasingly, these building projects are becoming really a feat of technology, and it's about how we integrate all of these myriad of systems to create a fully functional railway that becomes critically important for us. So everything that we design must be done so in a way that creates a harmonized, efficient end state operation. We must always have our eye on the final end goal of what this system is designed to achieve. So from the bridges we build to the systems we install and the trains we run, it must all support the delivery of an outstanding passenger experience. And crucially, one that every single one of the UK's diverse citizens can access, enjoy, and benefit from. I think it's fair to say that the current rail network as it stands is not something that is accessible to everyone. And in fact, one of the key barriers to travelling by train today, as cited by passenger surveys, is a sense of anxiety around not being in control or having uncertainty as to what might happen and when, whether there may be any delays and what impact that might have. So with HS2, we want to create something that is totally dependable, totally repeatable, and something that people can have confidence in traveling by train again, because we want to create that modal shift between using the car or using a domestic airplane to moving on to HS2. So if we move on the slides, please. Our strategic goals. So our vision on HS2 is to be a catalyst for growth across the UK. And to support this, we have 7 strategic goals, which we use as a framework for the way that we evaluate tenders and measure supply performance. So for example, it's critical that we are a good neighbour to the communities who will host us during construction and operation, listening and caring for their needs and being considerate, professional and transparent at all times. So it's worth you as a business taking the time to think about how you might contribute to the delivery of these strategic goals, because irrespective of where you may appear in our supply chain, everyone has a contribution to make. If we may move on. So all of this is reflected in our values. And in order to win work on HS2, both the tier 1 suppliers, so those companies that work directly with us, and the companies that will supply to them have to subscribe to our goals, values and guiding principles, because these values shape everything that we do as a business and form the basis of our relationships with all of our stakeholders. And if any of you have ever been to a HS2 meeting, you'll notice that we start every meeting with a values moment where we reflect on good and bad practice in the delivery of these values and how we live them every day. And you'll have also heard us say before at events that actually how we deliver HS2 is just as important as what is delivered. So just exploring these themes, safety, that must of course be front of mind in a modern construction project. But key to achieving excellent safety performance is actually about looking after and investing in the health and well-being of our workforce as well. And we expect our suppliers to do the same. At HS2, we really want to raise the bar in terms of how we understand and monitor and promote the well-being of everyone working on the project. It's important that we respect all stakeholders, of course, regardless of their thoughts on the project. That's an absolute must. And we must lead by example. We expect that of everyone in the supply chain. And that all must be supported with genuine integrity. So being fair, transparent, and honest, consistent with all of our dealings with everyone. So if we can move on, where are we at currently? Well, as Andrew said, over 2,000 businesses have already delivered work for HS2. 72% of those are SMEs and 98% are based in the UK. Our new online supply chain maps show you the distribution of suppliers across the UK. And you can filter by region and constituency to see companies working in your local area. So phase 1, this is the London to Birmingham section and the focus of our construction activities at present. We have 230 sites in operation every day, a huge range of work underway. Services will begin running between London Old Oak Common in the west of London and Birmingham between 2029 and 2033, and then from London Euston. So a lot of the partnerships that we have in place are long-term strategic partnerships with our suppliers over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So this is an opportunity for you to build a really long-term association with the project over the next decade or more. Phase 2A, as Andrew says, the bill is making good progress through Parliament. It's completed its committee hearings in the Lords, and we'll go back to the Commons now for them to consider those changes to the bill before we hopefully achieve the third reading, and then in effect royal assent thereafter by the end of 2020. We intend to align the delivery of Phase 2A to Crewe with the Phase 1 delivery programme, so that it opens very shortly after the Phase 1 infrastructure. Phase 2B, which is the section in yellow, completing the Y network. On the western leg, the extension up to Manchester, and on the eastern leg, the route through the East Midlands with a spur to Sheffield and up to Leeds, with then a hook into the East Coast Main Line near York. So we're working closely with the National Infrastructure Commission on an integrated rail plan to ensure that the 2B route will be fully integrated with other programmes such as High Speed North and Midlands Connect. And whilst this work is underway, the government has asked us to prepare a hybrid bill to extend the route from Crewe to Manchester, which we expect to deposit within the next year or so. So progress away on Phase 2B as well. So moving on, you can see that this year, 2020, has been a hugely significant year for us. And we're preparing to start tunnelling. Peak of construction, we'll have 10 tunnel boring machines, each a self-contained underground factory, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weighing up to 2,200 tonnes. Each 160-metre long machine will bore and line our tunnels. And there are plenty of them on HS2. If anyone's familiar with the Crossrail project down in London, that was a huge tunnelling exercise under the centre of London. Well, Phase 1 alone of HS2 is twice the tunnel of Crossrail. So you can see this is a hugely significant undertaking. We'll also start to deliver the extensive array of earthworks that we need to create the really flat, straight route that you need for a high-speed railway. So if you think about all the plant and equipment that's going to be required to support that, as well as the personnel, then there's a lot of opportunities in that space coming up over the next 6 to 12 months or so. And while the construction, in addition, of our most iconic structures, like the Colne Valley Viaduct, just inside the M25, will also begin next year. So moving on, who's delivering all of this? Well, the construction of the route will be delivered by 4 joint venture partners. These contracts collectively are worth around £12 billion. So in the south, in London, which is a section of the route that mostly comprises tunnel, it's being delivered by Skanska Costain Strabag. Moving further up, we've got the Colne Valley Viaduct and the Chiltern Tunnel, a 10-mile long Chiltern Tunnel being delivered by a line joint venture comprising of Bouygues, Volker Fitzpatrick and Sir Robert McAlpine. Then moving up further north, we've got an extensive section in Area Central, mostly rural, open route, a significant number of viaducts, cuttings, some cut and cover tunnels being delivered by Eiffage Kier, Ferrovial BAM joint venture. And then moving into the West Midlands, we've got Balfour Beatty Vinci delivering a really complex section of route going into the heart of Birmingham and heading further north to tie into the existing West Coast Main Line near Handsacre. So they're picking up the baton from our enabling works contractors, and they'll be working with us for the next 6 to 8 years or so. And already they have a procurement pipeline in the hundreds of millions out actively engaging with the market. From the 23rd of November this year, we'll be hosting our next Meet the Contractor event, where you can hear directly from our partners and understand a bit more about what they're buying and when. So please do look out for that event starting the week commencing 23rd of November. We've done some press activity over the last week about that, so you might see it advertised in the trade press, but also have a look at our website as well for further information. So moving on, a bit more information about the sorts of opportunities that are going to likely arise from our main contractors. It's quite a diverse array of opportunities. If you think about all the goods, works and services that will be needed to supply a 22,000 strong workforce, as well as all the heavy civils, plant and materials, supply of commodities and aggregate that's also going to be required. Services such as rail freight, but also manufacturing and off-site manufacturing, which will be a key part of of what we do on HS2, whether that be steel, rebar, for instance, or specialist components and equipment are going to need to be manufactured and machined off-site. So hopefully this gives you a flavour for the breadth of the works and services on offer. Our contractors are required to use a platform called Compete For to advertise all opportunities. So if you do nothing else today, please do register on Compete For and create your company's profile where you can sign up to receive tailored alerts on opportunities that may be of interest to you. Our contractors also use something called a common assessment standard with pre-qualification based on an industry agreed set of questions. So once you're pre-qualified with one contractor, one of the 4 that you saw on the previous screen, you won't have to pre-qualify again with another, which hopefully helps reduce some of that procurement burden. So moving on, as HS2 Limited, the end client to all of this, we still need to buy billions of pounds worth of quite large scale contracts to deliver phase 1. And since April this year, we've launched almost £3 billion worth of procurements. So let me take you through the key categories, focused on the final 3 that you can see on the slide. So moving on to stations procurement update, we need to procure construction contracts for our 2 Birmingham stations. And in August, we issued the invitation to tender for our Birmingham Curzon Street station in the heart of the city. So the following bidders were invited to tender for this £570 million contract. We've got BAM Ferrovial joint venture, Lang O'Rourke and Mace Dragados joint venture. We expect to commence procurement shortly as well for Birmingham Interchange. Birmingham Interchange being situated near the NEC and the airport in Solihull. And one point I want to emphasise here is that sustainable design is very much at the heart of our plans. Through innovative design, we've developed a pathway to achieving an unprecedented 55% reduction in carbon emissions for Birmingham Curzon Street over its 120-year life cycle. And in operation, our stations will be able to achieve net zero day-to-day operation in terms of carbon. Over 40 delivery partners have been collaborating to achieve the designs that we have so far in the Birmingham stations, which just goes to show the importance of working together on a project like HS2. Moving on, railway systems. Now, this is a complex category of around 16 contracts, and these contracts will underpin the success of the operational railway. They must be integrated, reliable, offer value for money with built-in safety and flexibility that manages and benefits from rapidly evolving technology. And our contracts generally cover design, installation, testing, and commissioning, some with technical support thereafter as well. We're actually evaluating pre-qualification returns at the moment for our track contracts, tunnel and line side M&E, overhead catenary, control command and signalling, operational telecoms, and HV power systems. So all of those procurements are now underway. And procurements to follow include track switches and crossings, our engineering management system, and also our Washwood Heath rolling stock depot and national control centre. And those procurements are due to kick off next year. The last point is rolling stock, which is not featured on this slide, but is the single biggest contract on the whole project. And this is the supply of our trains. And we need a minimum of 54 trains to operate the first services. And we expect to award that contract, likely to be £2 to £3 billion worth, early next year, with the 5 bidders being Alstom, a Bombardier Hitachi joint venture, CAF, Siemens and Talgo. So moving on, a couple of final slides. I want to give you a bit more of an update on phase 2 and what this means for the market. We have announced the use of a slightly different model for the construction of our civils works to that of phase 1, utilising a design and delivery partner to sit client side within HS2 Limited, and accompanied by smaller works packages. The DDP will be responsible for that programme management, commercial management, project management, as well as overseeing the design and systems integration. We've got a webinar briefing tomorrow morning on the DDP, so if you're interested, please do email me and we can get you involved in that. And we've also, we expect in terms of procurement to launch the DDP package early next year with the works contracts to follow into next year as well. So moving on, my penultimate slide, phase 2B. We expect to start procurement of ground investigation services and contractors in Q1 of next year. And then we hope to understand the outcomes of the strategic review for the eastern leg by the end of the year. So moving on, please. Just a few top tips and pieces of advice from our perspective in terms of how you can maximize your chance of success. Very much take the time to understand our vision, values, and strategic goals. This is not a tick box exercise. We want to see how you can demonstrate and evidence your approach to achieving that. Please do register with the right online portals. All of our direct opportunities are advertised on the government's contracts finder. All the indirect opportunities, i.e. through our supply chain, are advertised on Compete For. Please do have policies in place. That's important for a project of the scale of HS2. Don't wait until procurement has landed. Please do make the time and the effort to put these policies in place. Consider what case studies you need to pull together that really demonstrate your capabilities as a business. Consider partnering if it's appropriate as well. Don't be put off if you can only do part of the scope of something. If you consider teaming up with others, you might be able to provide a more compelling proposition, just as our contractors did in bidding for work with the HS2 directly. And of course, weigh up your decision to bid, really understand the requirements and what you need to do to be able to win that tender, and whether you've got the time and the resources to produce a really strong bid. Lastly, build your network. That's a key point. You're all here today because you're interested in opportunities. Please do take the time to build your professional and personal relationships with your peers in other businesses, and consider things like social media perhaps as well. So finally, just a couple of extra pieces of advice. Move on the slides. If I were to give you three key takeaways, I'd say please do look at our guidance online, register on Compete For, and thirdly, certainly engage with Miranda and everyone at the Chamber to help you prepare your business. So at which point I'd like to introduce Mike at Booth Industries, if you're on the call, Mike, to help bring this all to life with a great example of a local firm benefiting from HS2. Thank you.
Okay, thanks Robin, and thanks Miranda, and obviously thanks to Andrew as well, and for his support in obviously readdressing the balance between the north and south, and long may that continue. So yeah, if we could go to the next slide please, I'll just give you a brief introduction to Booth. So it is a Bolton-based business established in 1873. We have 2 dedicated manufacturing facilities and an in-house design team. We're the only designer, manufacturer and installer of complete door products to hold QC Grade 1 accreditation globally. And what that means is effectively we can produce doors and components that go indoors that basically are subject to a nuclear or seismic case. And that enables us to work in different types of projects that are extremely exciting and afford us unique opportunities in that sense. So we specialise in the design, manufacture, and installation of high-performance assured solutions. So what that kind of means is that we operate at the high end of the market in terms of very bespoke solutions. We have a customer-centric, solutions-based business. We listen to our customers. It's very much about collaboration, understanding some of the needs of these really, kind of important projects for national infrastructure, of which Crossrail was a great example of that. And we kind of look to provide something that possibly isn't on the market at the moment, is innovative and ticks all the boxes. So we operate in a number of key sectors. Infrastructure, as you're now aware, we obviously won the HS2 contract for the cross passage doors, which we're absolutely delighted about. And that builds on some of the work we've done on Crossrail and also HS1. So we were one of the door suppliers on that as well. We also operate in the nuclear sector, so both civil and defence. We have a rich history in offshore oil and gas, defence and security, petrochemical and aviation. So we really work across a breadth of different industries there, supplying different types of solutions for those. As I stated, Booth supply cross-passage doors for HS1. What we're supplying for HS2 is very much kind of a step forwards on those. And as you would expect, there's a lot of innovation that are going to be applied to our design to ensure that that meets the rigorous standards of those trains travelling at quite a velocity. And we're a worldwide provider. We supply cross-passage doors as far afield as Taiwan and Mexico. And just recently, we've also secured a contract to supply doors to Antarctica for the British Antarctic Survey. So really pleased to be part of that. And that just gives you a flavour for some of the diverse projects that Booth operate in. Next slide, please. So I won't go into the details of actual HS2 itself, as Robin's kindly already outlaid. There is some really rigorous requirements in terms of trains travelling at high speed, high loads on those. So what we'll effectively be doing is we'll be supplying the first instance almost 300 casting frames, which will be supplying to the civil subcontractor. That should start in the middle to end of next year when the first frames are required. So we'll be looking at a design there that, again, was part of our kind of submission, was to ensure that we provide something innovative. It's not just a frame, it's what we're providing as a solution to be able to enable the most accurate fitting of those, and to effectively establish, or in the future, that we can go to those areas and install the doors without too much hassle, and them obviously fit first time. So there's 300 doors, 3 different variants of doors, all of which Booth have supplied doors in the past, which have met those requirements individually. What we now will be doing for the doors for HS2 is providing a solution that meets all of that combined into one solution. And believe me, that's a lot more difficult than it sounds. So we're incredibly excited, and we have a team of engineers with years and years of door experience, an R&D team as well. It's something that we specialise in, and we'll be kicking that off in the coming weeks, and that will immediately generate new roles in the business and provide opportunities for local people. If you could move the next slide on, please. So these are just some key milestones. So there have been some subtle changes to this based on some of the revised HS2 delivery times, but as I stated, so we'll be looking at supplying casting frame designs for the beginning of next year. Those casting frames, the first of which will be supplied to the civil contractor by the end of 2021. And we'll be looking at going into manufacture on the first test doors around the middle to end of next year as well. So as we've stated, these doors aren't something that we've built before. They're very unique, with different sets of performance requirements, each of which will have to be destructively tested. And if you see our LinkedIn page, you'll see over the past year or two, we've spent a lot of time and effort and in research and development of destructively testing doors to ensure that they meet the requirements of our customers and providing insurance documentation. So hopefully we will complete the DFM, and that will be approved around 2022, and we'll be looking to commence manufacture around September 2025. And as Andrew pointed out earlier, we are building a bespoke facility to house that. Work actually gets underway quite soon on that, in fact in the coming month, and we'll be looking at getting set up for that and providing training and apprenticeships to enable us to go into that, create new jobs, and obviously create a lasting footprint within the Bolton area. In terms of actually installation, so the installation work will start around 2025, and that will go on through until 2030, I believe. We'll be providing assistance throughout that, and then during the dynamic testing cycle, which is quite an important part of any railway's kind of completion and assurance and handover to the final operator, we'll be supporting that right through to the end as well. So incredibly excited to be doing that. It builds on a lot of the hard work that the team have done over the last 2 or 3 years down at Crossrail and before that as well, and really is kind of in line with our vision and strategy there. So next slide, please. So Booth, as we've stated here, very single-minded in our approach, with the HS2 cross-passage doors, and indeed, further packages that will be let over the coming kind of years. We believe we had the expertise and knowledge within the business, and to Robin's point, we needed to align that with HS2's values and really articulate that in a package that that demonstrated our past experience and our will and desire to innovate and go forwards and work collaboratively with HS2 to provide what is a very unique solution. We're absolutely delighted that HS2 felt the same, and that Booth were the successful bidder in that. So Robin's what he stated earlier, I couldn't emphasize that enough. We spent a lot of time understanding, okay, what does this mean to HS2? And to steal a phrase, this is more than just kind of a product, and there's much more to do with it. We often look at our offering as more than just doors. In fact, quite often the actual delivery of the project, the softer stuff, the assurance documentation, everything that goes with it, is a greater part, and in fact more important than the actual product itself. So we really spent a lot of time understanding what HS2 needed, how they wanted to work, and and press that home within our submission. So everyone in the organisation, as you'd imagine, is extremely proud of the achievement, and we're really excited to be part of that. It immediately creates jobs and investment. Which I just stated, we're about to build a new factory. That was something we'd actually had planning permission back earlier on this year. We were investing in the future anyway, and we saw this as a strategically important project that we would like to run out of it, and thankfully that's come to fruition. So definitely planning for success in that from that perspective. Next slide, please. So Booth is immensely proud to be part of the Northwest manufacturing industry. We've had a footprint here for many years. In fact, since 1873, Booth Industries have pioneered in a number of areas, right from steelwork to HS1 to Crossrail, and have been at the forefront of technology in that sense. So we've never forgotten our roots, and we've always invested, and we have a core team of people here who are absolutely committed and dedicated, to driving this business forwards and ensuring that we stay at the top of the door market. So winning the HS2 contract obviously gives us the backing both financially and from a parent company point of view. It gives the confidence there to invest, to create further employment opportunities, and that will invariably benefit the local economy as a whole. Obviously, this is an uncertain time for any business, and whilst we still have our fair share of challenges to weather over the coming year, as we all do, it provides certainty around employment, around investment as well, and it provides a fantastic foundation for us to build a business, not just for tomorrow, but for decades to come. So yeah, it absolutely does mean we will be committing to that. And furthermore, we're already speaking and have done in the past year with some of the local universities, but we're building on that further. And not only does that create a potential job progression into Booth, it also presents an opportunity for universities to partner with us, and call on some of our knowledge and likewise and vice versa, where we can actually look at some of the innovative stuff that they're doing. With Bolton University, they've become a key strategic partner of ours, and we're looking to take that further with Salford and Manchester as well in the coming months. Next slide, please. So yeah, just really to top that off. So our pledge has always been with all our customers, and it will be with HS2, is to work collaboratively. We build a quality product that's innovative and ticks all the boxes that HS2 will require, not just now, but for decades and decades to come, as Robin pointed out before. From the outset, when we prepared this bid, we took HS2 values to heart, made sure that was reflected in everything we do, and it will be reflected in everything we do going forwards. Some of the key things that we've learned is that this is more than just a door, not just to ourselves, but to HS2, and obviously that was key in our success. So yeah, I would commend all of you to invest the time in understanding what opportunities are there. Look into it more than just the product. It really is. It's an overall solutions, and I think that's where Booth were able to differentiate themselves. We pride ourselves on offering a customer-centric, solutions-based business and proposal, and I think that's what I'd ask everyone else to do, and I'm sure you'll be very successful in your attempts. So that's Booth. I hope that gives everybody a flavour for what we do and what we're about to do with HS2. We're immensely proud, and thanks Robin and thanks Miranda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both Robin and to Mike. If you've got questions, please put up your little blue hand or type them into the chat, and let me call on you and get you to ask your question direct to our speakers. It was really good to hear, especially there from Mike. Great job to bring along there, Mike, because when you're talking about both, you're talking about a company that sounds very much like many of our companies that are here, where you're supplying into a variety of industries. We've got companies with us today that are supplying into automotive, aerospace, and nuclear, as you mentioned. And to think of those skills being crossover skills that they can put into this sector, that's exactly what we want to hear. And the benefits that you're getting from supplying into this supply chain, the fact that you can see that certainty ahead of contracting, certain enough to start building new premises and capability to deliver that. That's exactly what our firms locally need at this moment, is that long-term certainty in a sector where it's not just one supplier. We've got, three just sat around this table. So one customer, three sat around this table. So it was really good to hear from you, Mike. Thanks very much. Debbie is building an email to all of you to follow up with, which will have the link to the Compete For website, and also the details of the next Meet the Contractor event, and we'll keep pulling those down and fielding them to you. So we'll try and make sure that you're fed all of the contact details that you need. Any more questions for any questions for Mark or for Mike or for Robin from our audience? I shall start picking on people I know if you're not careful. You know I will.
Miranda, I'm happy to answer the question about social value if that helps. That came up
yes,
earlier.
Go ahead. That would
Andrew.
be great. Thank you, Robin. Yes, from Martin. That's right.
Yes, no problem. So just to give you an example, we do place a lot of importance on this. Our main work civils contracts, huge contracts, biggest civils contracts that have ever been let in the UK. When you look at the social value elements of that tender that we evaluated, and taking into account things like environmental sustainability, equality, diversity and inclusion, skills, education, employment, combined, that made up about 15% of the tender, which in the context of all the other things that we have to consider around deliverability, price, quality, assurance, etc., is actually quite a significant percentage. And I think the social value best practice is considered to be a sort of minimum of 10% on social value. So to get to 15 and use that as a great benchmark, I think just shows the emphasis that we place on that. And the important thing about that is that all the targets that are written into those contracts, they are going to look to assemble a supply chain that can help them meet what we need ultimately. So whether that be creating really good apprenticeship programs and bringing on board more apprentices, we're now up to, I think, 350 apprentices on the project, new apprentices, that is. Whether it be getting people that have previously been out of work into work, whether it be working with ex-offenders, whether it be working, a whole range of different skills and education employment outcomes, going into local schools. These are all things that businesses can be doing to help us and our main contractors sort of deliver what we need. Sustainability is another key one as well. We've seen some really great examples and case studies now on carbon in particular, and suppliers innovating. We've got the first ever hydrogen powered site cabins now, almost in the world, I think. We're looking at zero emission electric plant and equipment and hybrid electric plant and equipment coming onto our sites. So there's some really good innovations that are coming from much further down the supply chain to help achieve some of these big strategic challenges that we have.
That's superb. Thanks, Robin. And I think that's the real important piece to note when you're thinking about how to get into this kind of supply chain. And you might be thinking, well, I'm competing with people on a global scale, but this is really the clues that you're being given by hearing what Andrew and Mike and Robin have said. It's this kind of building and showing the connections into the local community, into that social value spectrum, into the adoption of sustainable technologies that really help you stand above more far distant competitors and those that really may not understand the importance of these things. So that's a really strong steer that you're being given there. So and it's something that we can help you with as well, because we're involved in an awful lot of connections like that, and it's something that we would be delighted to do, is help you work to be able to get into contracting, into this kind of business. So thank you very much to Robin and to Mike. And like I said, this is Chris Smith has got his hands up. Brilliant, Chris. When does your hand gone up, Chris? I can't see that, Chris. Chris from Pendle Engineering. Go on, Chris.
Hello, Miranda, and hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Chris from Pendle Engineering. We're a steelwork subcontractor in Nelson. Just wanted to say thank you to the speaker from so far. Really interesting insight. Interestingly, we are familiar with the Compete For platform, having registered for it, but as a subcontractor, we've definitely had the feelings inside our firm that the opportunities look to be geared up for maybe higher up the tiers than we would be. Definitely hear the point on partnerships and trying to team up and become bigger as a combined force. But interested to hear some thoughts from perhaps Robin, as a firm like us, who is a subcontractor. We don't offer a tier 1 product like maybe Mike does. How would we maybe get into that Compete For? How would we be able to use that to our advantage?
Yeah, it's a fair challenge, and I think it's a function of where we're at in the project, actually, in many ways, Chris. Because when you look at Compete For, a lot of the contracts that are on there are actually quite high value. And that's because the main works contractors, who are typically that's where the demand is coming from at the moment, they've got in themselves billion-pound contracts, and so in turn their subcontracts are often in the tens of millions. And we're not quite at that stage yet where we're going to get to those smaller, more bite-sized pieces of work coming out. But what I would say is that the way we set up the contracts are such that we require our main works contractors to in turn require their suppliers to also post their opportunities on Compete For. So Compete For will be used by our tier 2 suppliers as well. So tier 3 opportunities will be advertised on that platform, and we'll be monitoring that to make sure that happens. So there might be a bit of a time lag. You're talking maybe 6-12 months time before maybe some small opportunities come available. There are some on there already, smaller scale stuff, but I would say a lot of the stuff on Compete For is quite large scale at the moment. And that's because our main works suppliers are really ramping up to think about, right, what do I need? Supply of aggregate, heavy civils work, piling. There's some pretty big strategic partnerships that they're buying at the moment. But once they're in place, that in turn will give rise to a much greater, wider spectrum of smaller scale contracts that you can expect to see in, as I say, 12 months time and thereafter. So please do keep your eyes peeled, and please do continue to continue the dialogue with HS2, and we can continue to give you, these updates on where we're at with the project and the sort of opportunities you can expect coming forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robin.
That's great. Thank you very much. And that gives you a real solid example of how to get involved and what we can support you on, and what Robin and people like Mike can help you really understanding how to supply and to make that successful. So we will move on, and we'll move on to Tim Wood from Northern Powerhouse Rail, Director at Transport for the North. Now, as you will all know, and you've heard us say so many times, it's not just about north-south, it's about east-west, it's about the last mile. There's a huge amount of shared footing between Northern Powerhouse Rail and HS2. It's not either or, it's very much both. And it's part of this really significant supply chain coming that you can be part of for the rail network for all across the north of England. And Tim's here to tell us about the Northern Powerhouse Rail component about this and how you can become involved. Nice to see you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Miranda. If we could just start the slides. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to update you on Transport for North's flagship programme, Northern Powerhouse Rail. Just to remind you all that the first intercity train ran between the great cities of Liverpool and Manchester back in early 1830. So if we can have the next slide, please.
Northern Powerhouse Rail is a programme to deliver a transformational rail network for the north of England. It will be the region's single biggest investment in transport since the Industrial Revolution. It will feature a mix of new and significantly improved railway lines, which will improve regional, national and international connectivity. For the people of the North, Northern Powerhouse Rail will mean more reliable commutes, quicker journeys, and easier access to new employment and leisure opportunities. It will bring the great places of the North closer together and take cars off the road, making the North an even greater place to live. And it's not just places on the MPR lines that will benefit. It will make journeys from other towns and villages quicker too. For our businesses, the new network will bring you closer to new markets, increase your talent pool, and make it easier to trade, collaborate, and grow. The new lines will also free up capacity on the existing network, making it quicker and easier to move freight across the north. We're currently making the case for investment and working with the government. We're looking at how best to deliver this transformational network for the north. Northern Powerhouse Rail will not only transform the way people and businesses travel, it will deliver improved productivity and help us rebalance the UK economy. It is the backbone of investment in transport in the North. The North has long been held back by underinvestment in transport. Northern Powerhouse Rail is the best opportunity in more than a century to unleash our potential. By the North, for the North.
Thank you very much for that. If we just have the next slide. What we aim to achieve with Northern Powerhouse Rail is to bring more capacity on our railways, to bring more businesses within reach of our major cities and to Manchester Airport, to create release capacity to allow existing rail to be better served by communities that are currently underserved, and to bring the North closer together as just one economic entity. Next slide, please. The emerging vision for NPR shows our vision for a transformational Northern Powerhouse Rail network. As agreed by the TfN Partnership Board, this includes a mixture of new lines, use of HS2 line, so that actually equals around 80 kilometres, around £13 billion worth of work, and significant upgrades to existing rail infrastructure. The today journey time is typical fast journeys across the North and the trains per hour, and shows typical express services, particularly around the peak frequency. The current NPR achievable journey time does not account for the stops, as it is the fastest possible journey time based on the option development that has taken place so far. NPR has got to be the best, or actually got the best fan in the world you could possibly have. As you know, when the PM took over, the first place he came at that weekend was up to Manchester, to the Manchester Science and Industry Museum. And he was very clear in the support he made in Manchester to stand up in front of Stephenson's rocket to promise the next generation of British rail innovation. Just on the next slide, please. Just the next slide. Thank you. Transport for North has been pressing government to commit to funding for NPR for shovel-ready schemes that are already in the pipeline and approved, which can kickstart the work to refit the Northern Powerhouse for the future. And we're asking for funding too, so that Transport for the North can keep developing Northern Powerhouse rail network, as well as schemes for roads, ports and airports that are essential to the Northern economy. Next slide, please. Come to the next slide, please. A huge amount of work has been going on over the past year to make the case for Northern Powerhouse Rail that will be included in a strategic outline case to government. As part of that case, we need to consider the deliverability of the scheme, and that also includes whether the supply chain is able to resource and meet the challenge of NPR. As you can imagine, with HS2 work going on, with TransPennine upgrade going on as well, there's an awful lot of opportunity there. The strategic case sets out the strategic context and the case for change for Northern Powerhouse Rail programme. It's structured on the potential impacts of NPR across 3 strategic areas of focus. They are in the UK, the North, and Transport for the North. Northern Powerhouse Rail will form the transport spine of the North, enabling future development and economic growth to be built from it. The purpose of the economic case is to present and evaluate potential options for Northern Powerhouse Rail within the context of the preferred strategic solution. The economic appraisal for the strategic outline case is underway and will produce evidence-based work on the preferred network identified during the shortlisting process. The preferred way forward will be the option which the TfN board members consider best meets the needs of the North. And actually that's going to happen in March next year when we put forward the strategic case for our leaders to decide on that economic boost to our economy over the next 100 years being derived out of building this railway. There's also the commercial case as well. It provides evidence on the commercial viability of NPR programme and the procurement strategy that will be used to engage the market. It describes the organisations involved in delivering the programme. It also includes in consideration of the financial implications of the programme, risk allocation between the parties involved in the programme, and the implementation timescales. In the financial case, we set out the cost to deliver the preferred network and access the affordability of the scheme. It covers our approach to cost estimation for the development of delivery of NPR, and we believe provide details of how the information could come forward to actually drive those costs down and really offer value for money. Processes such as international benchmarking, optimism bias have helped improve the confidence in our cost estimations, and we are actually undergoing a cost challenge at the moment where we expect to see the costs reduced from between 13 and 21%. It's not often you hear that on a railway scheme. And then finally, the management case includes information on the programme structure, where we describe what's required for delivery of MPR programme, including roles and responsibilities and the government structure, programme assurance, the phasing strategy, and how we will manage the benefits coming through. Next slide, please. So here we have the pathway to submission for the strategic outline case. In November, the TfN board will sign off the preferred phasing scenario, how the network will be built, and initially agree the preferred MPR network itself, going between those key 6 city regions and Manchester International Airport. We will then look for our final sign off, as I said, in March 2021. We will write that all up and the evidence based around it for the cases I spoke about, and then this in March, after our board on the 10th, will actually go to government for consideration. The final decision on what to build will be made then by the government, and as you saw, Minister Stephenson will be integral in that decision making. Next slide, please. The Integrated Rail Plan is due to be published in December 2020. It will make recommendations on how best to integrate NPR, HS2 2B, TRU and other major rail schemes in the north. Evidence is being collated by the National Infrastructure Commission, of course headed by Sir John Arnott. The emphasis is on how schemes could be delivered earlier, especially deriving benefits for passengers as soon as possible. It may decide to set up a new delivery vehicle to encompass all big northern schemes, or may make lesser changes to governance to ensure they're all aligned. But what's really important is how quickly can we move? How do we offer value for money on these schemes? Next slide, please. The refreshed strategic outline case is planned to be submitted to government, as I said, in this financial year. The whole of MPR network will eventually have to be consulted on, both informally and formally. This will be a lengthy and extensive engagement to ensure that we capture as many views from communities along the proposed MPR network. The parliamentary process will also be very detailed and lengthy, as our colleagues in HS2 have found. So just to give you some sense of scale, the HS2 Phase 1 bill was the single biggest bill ever to have been put through the Houses of Parliament in its entire history. We hope MPR won't require a similar scrutiny, but of course it's going to have a considerable process to get through. So we will be looking to deliver one single hybrid bill, and that will be for our new lines from Liverpool, Central Warrington, Manchester, Central Bradford and up to Leeds. And we are talking with our co-clients, the Department for Transport, about how Parliament might be able to facilitate early introduction of the MPR bill. Next slide, please. In terms of quick wins, we're now looking at how to deliver significant benefits ahead of the connection being made with HS2 2B. So what options require fewer complex consents? This could include the route between Leeds and Hull corridor, which will provide a complete electrification across from Hull to Liverpool in line with TRU being built as well. So that's the first time we can run ever electric trains right the way across east to west. What delivers early schemes across multiple corridors, enabling passengers across the north to benefit early? What aligns HS2 dependent schemes during 2035 to 2040 in line with the Phase 2B bit, noting opportunities to expedite through the integrated rail plan, especially on the western leg? And crucially for yourselves, how to give a good lead time to prepare the supply chain through gradual phasing of schemes. And we've often said that we want to have spades in the ground in the mid-2020s. Well, actually, we want to start earlier than that. There's 2 potential stations, a new Barnsley, Durham Valley and a new Rotherham Midland mainline station that gives us a real opportunity to get going a lot quicker. And they're just no regret schemes. They're needed right now. Next slide, please. The government aren't the only ones who are keen to crack on. Absolutely, we are too. We just want to get started on site and get building. And that's achievable, especially on the corridors in the MPR that require upgrades to existing railway lines that need less land assembly and consents to get going. On corridors west of the Pennines, and of course the Manchester to Leeds route through the Pennines, we will need to go through more considerable challenges to ensure that we have a clear route to build on. And just to give you an idea of that, potentially there's 8 new tunnels that need to be constructed between Manchester and Bradford. So an awful lot of work, an awful lot of the learning that HS2 are going through now. That's really knowledge transfer, but particularly the difficulties that we're going to have boring through millstone grit. If everybody knows the geology around here in the north of England, it really is going to wear those cutting heads away quite quickly. But it's our ambition to deliver that east-west network for the north by 2040, when the north will finally be released from the straitjacket of poor infrastructure that's held this economy back for far too long. Next slide, please. Together with the rest of the UK, the North's transport-related challenges, including increasing competition for skilled workers and negative perceptions of careers in the transport sector. We must overcome these challenges if we are to help grow the Northern economy, and we can only do this if Northern transport organisations, combined and local authorities and private businesses work together to help meet future skills needs. At Transport for the North, we're ideally placed to make this collaboration happen. And that's a key word, collaboration. I've heard it already today. It's really important how people get together, work on solutions, and then actually drive those through and get out there and deliver them. If HS2 and Northern Powerhouse Rail are to be developed, we need to be training the next generation of engineers, going into schools and colleges to show what can be done in terms of our industry, the great rail industry, where 600,000 people work in this skilled, highly skilled set of people that are able to make sure that we can transfer the knowledge, we can have a legacy, and we can sell our skills worldwide. So there is skills shortage, and it's increasing across the transport related sectors, particularly in project management, engineering, technology, logistics, digital and training roles. Without action to address this, the skills gap will grow. So we know in the next 15 years, half the people will have left the rail industry. It's something that we need to sort out and sort out quickly. Just have the last slide. Thank you very much, Miranda. I'm really happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Tim. Tim and I frequently appear in the same place saying the same things and about the importance of this, not only as a business stimulation tool for our industries represented around the table to supply in, but as Tim has said, the success of the North as an area. You know, if you look at similar areas across Europe, their connectivity is far superior. And an area the size of the north of England with the concentration of manufacturing and export would be far better served by connectivity of all sorts of different modes if you were in Europe compared to the UK. So it's something we must ramp up, and it's a huge opportunity for the skills development and future skills in our potential workforce. Have we got questions for Tim, please? Otherwise, I'm going to start picking on people. Definitely. Just while you're really thinking about that, it's something where we've been a really strong supporter in the past, where you are putting those hybrid bills. Our Dave's got one. Great, Dave. I'll come to you in just a sec. I'll just finish the sentence. It's something where we've been really strong supporters of HS2 and are there for you as well, Tim and TFN, when you're having to put those bills through Parliament and you need business support and demonstration of the economic support behind it. You know, we are there with you to help you build that case and give you all the ammunition we can. And it's something we did an awful lot of with HS2, as Robin will remember from years ago. So we're there to help you when those bills are being prepped to try and strengthen your argument. Dave Pennington, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Just touching on what you were saying about the labour supply and what have you moving forward. There is a shortage. There has been for some time, and we're currently seeing a significant number of operatives moving away from the industry yet again. It doesn't seem that we don't seem to learn every control period. The start, the first year, 2 years, we dip significantly. How are we going to approach that? How are we going to change that for this? We just I've been involved for 3 control periods now, and nothing's changed throughout any of them. I just still feel it's quite short-sighted.
No, I think, Dave, thank you very much. That's incredibly helpful. So we won't be having any of that boom bust nonsense on Northern Powerhouse Rail. Once we've started, the only time we finish is when all those passenger trains are running. We've opened up that capacity. You just can't have a situation whereby we did all the electrification work on West Coast route modernisation, and it was a further 16 years from once that programme had finished to the Northwest electrification, and it didn't go particularly well, as much as Great Western electrification didn't go particularly well. And it's because of the gap in time. You need a continuum of work. So in Germany, they actually electrify X number of kilometres per year, year in, year out. And I think for us, once we've built those skills up, we actually have the work to be able to feed in. So it's really down to the government then to make sure that the investment carries on. I've always said with NPR, if you cut one of the legs off, don't bother building it. You need all the legs for NPR, that connectivity to bring those city regions closer together to get what is known as the agglomeration effect. So those city regions working harder. So between Leeds and Manchester is just about 40% at the moment. So there's a massive eyes on the prize. You've then got the decarbonisation piece as well. What does the government put in terms of value on decarbonisation? Actually, it's quite low at the moment, the amount of money you could put in an appraisal to value that. So these things need to be re-looked at again, and the Green Book. But it's a case of the North. It's double the population of the Southeast, but it produces half the gross value add because we've been in this straitjacket for the last 4 decades. So we need to release ourselves, get the approval on the strategic outline case, and actually get building. I think another good example has got to be Trans-Pennine Upgrade. Probably going now for what, 8 years, something like that, 7 or 8 years. Still not got that spade in the ground, and it's vital that that program moves forward because, of course, we're going to be coming up behind that as much as the 2B piece of work as well for HS2 is going to be there. So what I'm looking at is more a different approach, that actually there'll be so much work happening. It's how we make sure that we've got the resources to be able to do that. Treasury's been very clear. If you haven't got the resources, you're not going to be able to get the money to carry on with these programs. So we're a rolling program. Once we've started, we just carry on right the way through. And I think working with our delivery partners in Network Rail and HS2, we're going to be able to form those programs that will allow that to happen. So very cognizant of what you're saying. We want to be tackling those sort of 8 to 10-year-olds in schools now to say, we've got a pipeline of work here and very much be thinking about that career, as well as people that are already in the industry or people that are retraining. So vital that we have the workload there to be able to push forward. And I think for us, what's really important, delivery of that strategic outline case and positive messages out of the government. It was second on the Tory manifesto. I remember first was Brexit, second was Build NPR. So here we are, and the case is delivered before you on the 10th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that's absolutely right, and it was second on the list, and I haven't forgotten. And you might think that would it be sliding further down with all of the concerns that we've got now, but actually no. The importance of the levelling up investment into HS2, Northern Powerhouse Rail, and the Network Rail developments, they really are a recovery mechanism to support our industries in growing back stronger after this crisis. So it needs to be accelerated, not decelerated, and that's very much the message. I'm going to pounce on somebody. Martin Hill, I've just read your job title. You're Employment and Skills Coordinator at Lancashire LEP, aren't you? How are we going to help Tim have all the skills that we need? How can we help get that message out locally? What can we do for you in terms of giving you this ammunition so we can try and get the skills development accelerated in our local colleges, so that we can furnish Denise and Tim and Robin with the staff? What can we do? Can we link you in with them, or help understand what the precise skills are that our businesses are going to need? Martin's still here. Says he's still here. Oh, he might have disappeared now. We'll try and catch him if he returns in a minute. So, any more questions for Tim? Tim, can you remind our audience of the percentage of joint footing between Northern Powerhouse Rail and HS2, and why we keep saying you can't build one or the other? Because that's always something that we get.
Absolutely. So I just talked about 80 kilometres of infrastructure that we rely on that HS2 will build, that MPR trains will run on. And that, for instance, an example would be known at Clayton Junction, which is just where the middle and main line coming out of Sheffield hits the new HS2 infrastructure coming up on the eastern leg, and then all the way up into Leeds. You've also got, and that's out for consultation at the moment, DRC2, it's known as, the touch points up here in the northwest of England that are really important to us, where the MPR network touches HS2, so we can go off to Liverpool, or of course follow the route into Manchester, and then with our own new line going up towards Bradford. And I think, you know, what numbers are we talking about? Well, the strategic outline case, as it was put forward in February last year, was £39 billion, and we're really working hard to make sure that that number still remains absolutely value for money. But this is not shortchanged that we're looking at, although HS2 is a national scheme, and we absolutely need that connectivity. I'm always thinking about how fast can I get London businesses up into the north rather than me getting down into the south. You're looking at connectivity at Bradford into Birmingham within an hour. And I think, you know, some of these journey times are really revolutionary, but it also releases capacity on existing lines as well as these new lines are getting built. And, you know, for people in Bradford, there's 500,000 people that live in Bradford. Bradford to Leeds, it's about 8 miles. It takes 21 minutes today on a 2-car pacer. You know, is that right for us and our economy? I don't think it is.
Thanks, Tim. We've got a question from Paul Jorgensen.
Sorry, yes, I was on silent there. Just a question for Tim, really. Tim, will you be setting up a unique portal for people to look at contract tenders, or will it be within existing portals?
So I think what we'll be doing is, once we've made the case in March next year, and we understand the phasing and delivery of the programme, then we'll start to look at our own frameworks. Currently, we've used frameworks that are available to us through Transport for Greater Manchester, through Crown Commercial Services frameworks to deliver our infrastructure development partners requirements, and also our project management office requirements as well. But that will certainly open out as we go forward into the future. I think for us, what's really important is we continue to move at pace. So we've done an awful lot of messaging out to the supply chain. I think this is a great event, just to give you the size and magnitude if you haven't necessarily picked up what MPR is all about. Because, you know, being quite frank and pretty brutal, really, I do want to use northern businesses to be able to help us design and build this railway. You know, this is where the railway started, and I think it's our opportunity to once again show what we can do up here in the north of England. So that's where we're going to be going with it. Bespoke frameworks right across the rail piece to be able to deliver MPR, and that's working very much in conjunction with our delivery partners of Network Rail and HS2.
Thank you, Tim.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim. So we will keep being the conduit for you to one way of getting those messages about those pathways to supply in and to register out to all of you and all of our businesses and all of the chambers and all the business organisations across the north, to be honest. But we will keep trying to get those pieces of information out to you. And as you'll see from Debbie, message from Robin Lapish. The Meet the Contractor event registration closes tomorrow. That's the HS2 Meet the Contractor event. So the link will go out straight after today's event closes. So please register on there if you want to attend that event. And Tim, please do send anything you want us to push out to all of the businesses we can reach. about details of how to make those connections and start to build those relationships with you and understand exactly what you need in terms of supply. That's what we're very much there for. So thank you very much, Tim. And moving on to our last speakers for today, we have Denise, Wetton and Karen Hornby from Network Rail. Denise is the Commercial and Business Development Director, and Karen is the Head of Customer Stations and Performance for the Northwest route of Network Rail. And Network Rail is my most recent meeting of people in this sphere, and it was really, really welcoming to hear exactly the same message from Denise and team when I first met them about this huge desire to be working with local suppliers in the north, with SMEs in the north, and really get our local supply chains built as strongly and as solidly as we can for a really long-term economic partnership. So it's great to hear from you, and thank you for being here. And I'll hand over to Denise. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Miranda. So could we bring the slides up? Thank you, Stephen. So it's a great pleasure to be here today, and really thank you for inviting us to speak with you. So as Miranda said, I'm the Commercial and Business Development Director for North West and Central Region, and that covers the geography from London Euston all the way through to the Scottish borders. So my job then, so I manage all commercial and procurement activity across the region and own the relationship with all of our supply chain. I also look after all business development opportunities for the region. For example, as Andrew mentioned earlier, they're restoring the railway schemes like Fleetwood to Port Lafale, but also new freight interchanges like that in Northampton Gateway. So I'm joined today by Karen Hornby, who, as Miranda said, is our Head of Performance and Customer Relationships, who really supports you all here in the East Lancashire region. So today, we're really going to talk to you about our regional plans for emerging stronger following the COVID-19 pandemic. So next slide, please. So our job in North West and Central is to deliver the best railway possible for the communities, businesses, passengers and freight partners that we are here to serve. So our part of the railway is a massive deal. So we are the backbone of Britain, that's what we call ourselves, and through our three routes, which are North West, Central and West Coast Mainland South, we account for 24% of the whole railway network in the UK. So we carry 247 million passengers a year, but that was pre-COVID. But also we move 700,000 tonnes of freight every single week. We connect communities in the north, but also the Midlands. And during COVID, we kept critical supplies moving through our freight network and also enabled our key workers to get to work and to travel around the country. And our teams really helped with setting up the new Nightingale Hospital in Manchester. It's not the railway, it's actually just Network Rail really trying to deliver for the communities we serve. So what we do actually absolutely matters. But we know to deliver the best service possible, we need to change, and we've embarked on our Putting Passengers First transformation programme. We absolutely exist because of our passengers and communities and freight users that we serve, so we must ensure that we absolutely deliver for them. So next slide, please. So at the heart of Putting Passengers First transformation is the Network Rail story. Now, I've been in Network Rail 13 years now, and I never thought I'd be talking about Network Rail using love hearts. But I am. Right, so central to our transformation are 4 key outcomes and what we call our 4 love hearts that really demonstrate our vision for who we want to be. So the first one is on the side of passengers and freight users. Everything we do in North West and Central needs to have passengers and freight users at its core. After all, we only exist, as I said, because of them. We must be easy to engage with, an efficient and dependable partner. So in North West and Central, this is about us doing what we say, building trust and working closely with our partners to deliver our commitments. And then also to be proud to work for Network Rail. We need motivated people and skilled people who have pride and care in everything they do. But also for the supply chain, we want you to be proud to work with us. And finally, what we call the instinctive industry leader. So in North West and Central, we want to lead from the front, really demonstrate that we can truly put passengers and freight users first by working closely with the whole industry and sometimes taking the lead when we need to. And if we achieve all of these outcomes, then we want passengers to say that my train is on time and I had a really good journey. We want our people to say my manager cares about me and I feel proud to be part of the Network Rail family. We want you, the suppliers, to say we're easy to work with. North West and Central do what they say, and actually they plan for the long-term future of this railway. And finally, we want our stakeholders and customers to say we are efficient, value for money, and we deliver what we say at the price that we promised. So what does that mean really for us here in the North West? So I'm going to hand over to Karen, who's going to bring this to life.
Thanks, Denise, and hello everyone. So yeah, I'm Karen Hornby. I'm a Northern girl, so I'm very passionate about the North. I'm Head of Performance Customer Relationship for the North West route, which means I'm responsible for performance and our train operating companies relationship, but also the two managed stations, so Manchester Piccadilly and Liverpool Lime Street. So you may be, and as Denise has just touched upon, we've recently undergone a change programme. Previously we were one route starting at Euston and ending at Gretna Junction, and now we're splitting our business up into 3 routes. So we've got North West, West Midlands and West Coast South. The North West route's made up of Cheshire, Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Cumbria and Lancashire. The same's also happened over on the Pennines, and we work really closely with our Eastern colleagues to deliver for the people of the North. So why did we change? Why did we devolve? So it's all about our devolution programme, which we see as a fantastic opportunity for all of us. As Denise said, we want to get closer to the markets that we serve. We want to put right the wrongs of the boom and bust timetables that we've had in the past. And we want to deliver more for our customers, and we want to win passengers back. So to help us to achieve this, we've restructured our leadership teams. So we've enabled greater local attention to detail and swifter decision making. We want to be easier to do business with. So we want to look at innovation. We don't want to duck difficult decisions about infrastructure or timetables. And it's about being on time every time. And that doesn't mean just about trains. It means about everything that we do. And we also want to embed a world-class safety and well-being culture. And at our stations, which is really close to my heart, we want, and across the frontline staff, we want to win passengers back by focusing on our service equation. What we say our strapline is safety plus performance plus brilliant basics equals service, and we strive for financial efficiency across the route. We know ticket revenue's down, and it's really important we spend the money we receive wisely, and we deliver even more for every pound that we spend. And if we do all of these things, then we'll deliver an even greater railway. And we want a railway that our passengers, customers, us as an industry and the North West can be proud of. And that's why it's great to be here today. As Denise said, you know, it's a fantastic opportunity for us. We want to promote what we're doing, but we also want to explore how we can work closer with you. Slide 2, please. So ultimately, our role is to put passengers and freight customers first by delivering a railway that gets people and freight where they need to be, on time every time. And as I said, we want to use the money we receive from government to keep our infrastructure safe and reliable. The construction and manufacturing sectors are key to help us deliver a reliable railway, and without them we couldn't do this. And there's quite a lot of stuff that we're already doing with the supply chain in East Lancashire. So in February this year, we completed the £3.95 million worth of investment between Accrington, Todmorden, Blackburn and Colne, repairing 2 canal bridges and sprucing up Nelson Station. And also started in August 2020, and work that's ongoing until the end of February 2021. We're undertaking work to refurbish 2 structures in Todmorden. We're restoring the Grade 2 listed Goxholme Viaduct, which spans the Rochdale Canal, and we're rebuilding Taylor's Bridge next to Todmorden Station. And most of this work was successfully completed after a 9-day closure of the railway, and we reopened to passengers on Monday morning this week. Again, for 3 consecutive weekends, we've got some upcoming work between the 21st of November to the 6th of December, where we're undertaking work to upgrade Daisyfield level crossing on Moss Lane, which is in the Blackburn area, as well as upgrading track there. So while the railway's closed, we're going to be replacing 2 signals with modern LED ones. We're replacing the level crossing gates at Daisyfield and installing new lighting. We're also moving the associated signal and telecoms equipment into a more secure location. We're carrying out drainage work at Nelson Station, and we're also carrying out some tamping at various locations to improve reliability. Slide 3. So slide 3 just talks about some of the long-term renewals that we've got. So we're working with colleagues from Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. They're funding us to prepare the Merseyrail network for new rolling stock, and that arrives next year. And then the first part of the Transpennine route upgrade begins next summer, and it involves the electrification and bridge strengthening work between Staley Bridge and Manchester Victoria. And this is to help us deliver a high-performing, reliable railway for passengers with more seats, more trains and faster journeys between Manchester and York. With our railway industry partners, we're also working to resolve congestion through Greater Manchester. So the December 2020 timetable will see some pattern changes as a first step to make trains travelling in and out of Greater Manchester more reliable. But we also accept that timetable changes are not the only answer. And that's why we're working as an industry to explore further infrastructure schemes. And when we understand and we're currently carrying out a review of these schemes, so when we have those, we'll pass them to the Department of Transport and regional stakeholders for their consideration. And then the Crew Hub is a major project for the North West, and that starts in 2022, and that involves the re-signalling of the railway. And further down the line, the project will also involve the regeneration of the station, which is being funded by Cheshire East Council and HS2 Link. And lastly, there's the Hope Valley Improvement Scheme, which is planned to start in 2023, and that involves the removal of a bottleneck to allow passenger trains to overtake slower freight trains between Sheffield and Manchester, and that'll open up potential more frequent trains between Manchester and South Yorkshire. So that's the work that we've got planned in the future. And then just on slides 4 and 5, something that's also close to my heart, which is community rail and working in partnership with community rail partners. So we've currently been carrying out some work with East Lancashire Community Rail Partnership on projects at Rishton and Lango. And we've just implemented a new community rail and charity panel to drive our community engagement. We're developing our community rail strategy, which will be published later this year, again, working with local stakeholders and looking at what's possible. So just to conclude, I really hope that you found it useful. I really, I'm grateful to be here today to start the initial talks on what more we can do. And as you can see, there's a lot of good stuff that we're doing in Network Rail, but we also know that the current challenges we're all experiencing because of COVID-19. And I think more now than ever, it's important that we, we all pull together and we work closely to see what's possible. So I'd like to pass back to Denise so that she can expand on this further.
Thank you, Karen. So we all know that the country is facing a really tough time at the moment. So COVID-19 has changed all of our lives and affected many of our industries across the country. The rail industry is really no different. Passenger numbers are down 70% of pre-COVID, and people are just not travelling, and the government guidelines is only travel if essential. But we're also having to find different ways of working with social distancing practices. And more than ever, as a company, we need to innovate. We need to find new ways of working and doing things differently, but we must do this together. So Andrew Haynes, our chief executive, who I know you've met, Miranda, put this brilliantly. He said, so changing the way we work together will make the biggest difference. Our response to COVID-19 embodies the putting passengers first mindset and just goes to show exactly what we can achieve. So never has this been more apparent than today, the fact that we need to work together, support each other to do the best we can to emerge stronger from this pandemic. Next slide, please. So to do this, we've established the new ways of working within my team. So for commercial and business development organisation, so the organisation that will interface with you, the supply chain, we've developed what I'm calling the 7 C's. I always like to have a little play on words, so I came up with the 7 C's. So the first one is communication, secondly, competence and capability, thirdly, challenging the status quo, fourthly, culture and collaboration, fifth, clarity of accountability, then cost consciousness, and finally, and most important, community. So it's essential that we work together as one railway community, whether that be with our customers, you, the supply chain, internally within Network Rail, or actually with our funders, the government. We can only deliver a brilliant railway if we work as one. And this is ever more apparent in these challenging times we're facing. And I've been so proud of how us as a community have really worked together to overcome these challenges. Let's not lose this, because we've made some great strides working together and continue to work as one team as we come through this pandemic. And I really want us to have the best railway we can to welcome our passengers back, one that's reliable, one that's safe, and one where we do brilliant basics brilliantly. So we have a lot to do, and we're asking you to come along the journey with us. So I just want to touch on what we're doing in North West and Central. Next slide, please. So COVID has really taught us we cannot do this alone. So we're focusing on opening up our opportunities to the wider supply chain. So we have a plan, which is very much focused on opening up the market, with particular focus on local SMEs. In September, we launched our Compete for microsite, which I'll touch on shortly. And we're just finalising our SME mapping survey across the region. And this is really enabling us to understand our wider market, so we can establish our targeted SME roadshows and events programme, which will start in early January, and I'll pass on to Miranda to share with everybody. We will then establish a comprehensive regional SME action plan and publish our communication policy. And finally, I know this is really important to SMEs, we're working on establishing a principal contractors licence sponsorship and acclimatisation programme to really use our supply chain differently and maintain that local focus on local supply markets. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the first step has been to launch our Compete for microsite for the whole industry. So as HS2 has a microsite, we do as well. So the microsite provides visibility of our work pipelines in North West and Central and allows access to all works which are to be contracted either directly by Network Rail, so by us, or indirectly by our tier 1 suppliers. So it's free to use and opportunities are targeted based on company profiles and also selected categories. So if you're not already registered on our microsite, we do encourage you to register your business. You can have access and visibility to all of our works. We are delivering all across the region. So in the north, but also all the way from London Euston through to the Scottish borders. And we're delivering significant renewals, maintenance and enhancements over the next control period. So this is all part of us doing things differently, maximising opportunities for everyone and supporting the region with new ideas and new ways of delivering, something which is at the heart of our Brilliant Basics programme. So next slide, please. So at the heart of our Brilliant Basics programme is looking at how we do things differently as a region. So how we can deliver the railway more efficiently and effectively by changing how we do things and by using external knowledge from different industries like manufacturing and aerospace. So we are asking our people, our customers and the supply chain for their support to help us improve. We don't have all the answers in Network Rail and we really do need your help. So next slide, please. So to get ideas and new innovations from the external marketplace, we've created our own Dragon's Den approach. I'm not the Deborah Mead and I don't think of North West and Central, but I try to be. So we're inviting our own supply chain, but also different industries to get involved. Never ever in my lifetime has there been a moment in time where we face so many challenges, both economic, environmental, but also cultural. So as a client, we need to work with and draw upon your support to help us face these challenges and deliver a railway that meets the needs of our passengers, freight users and local communities. So my ask, please do get in touch if you'd like to explore how you can work with us or work together on new initiatives, discuss a proof of concept, or just wish to showcase your company and ideas on how we can work together to make the infrastructure more resilient, efficient and sustainable. So we hold periodic Dragon's Den forums where you have a chance to take part in a virtual show at the moment, because obviously everything's online, and tell us about your ideas and innovations. We can then take any ideas forward that will support our region in delivering a better railway for everyone. Because I know together we can emerge stronger from this pandemic, but we need everyone to come across with you. And this is why we're here today, to promote some of the stuff we're doing. So thank you for your time today. And as I said, please do get in touch if you want to come along this journey with us to help us emerge stronger. Thank you, Miranda.
You're on mute, Miranda, I think.
I know, I was further along the line of names, so I'm like, oh no, I'm dying back. Thank you very much. That's excellent to hear from both of you. We've got a question straight away from Dave Pennington. Dave, do you want to come back in? Are you still there? There you go.
Yeah, it's just the Compete For site. Does that cover any that you deem as a framework scheme as well, or is that just sort of out and out tender bids?
So it's tender bids, but then we're asking the tier ones to go out using Compete For as well. So we've never done that before, and we're going to mandate it. So you have to use Compete For. So when they go to the tier twos or SMEs, they've got to register it on the microsite. So actually the microsite will have all of the works that we have in our region on there, whether it's Network Rail letting the contract or whether it's a supply chain letting the contract, so through the frameworks that we've got. Yeah,
and sorry, just off the back of that, and when's that enforced then, for want of a better phrase? Is that live now, or?
Yes, the site's launched, and then we're working with our tier ones now to make sure that they start using our Compete For website, microsite.
Right, okay, thank you.
Brilliant, excellent.
So get in touch, Dave.
Yeah, get in touch. Get your head around Compete For, because as you can see, it's the route to many rail supply routes.
No, I'm more concerned that I work for a tier one and no one's mentioned it to me yet. So I'm going to have to ask the question.
Ask the question.
Yeah.
We think it's the best way to open up the markets, because we get new ideas, new innovation from actually looking at the tier ones, and the tier ones can then use it to see what works we have across the whole network.
Right.
But
great.
if you're a tier one, you'll probably get the message sooner. We haven't mandated it just yet, but we will be, I hope.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you can be ahead of the game, Dave. Go on, Denise. Sorry, I spoke over the top of you.
Okay, is it something you would use, Dave? Do you think it's useful?
Well, I'd have to see how it was set up. Typically, our head office deal with all of the major bids, so yeah, it's a difficult one. I typically only deal with framework bids, so
okay.
Yeah, I'd have to see what it looks like.
Happy to share it with you.
It's one of those things we can evolve further on. If you think of the fact that you're using Compete For, HS2 are using Compete For, Tim and Transport for the North are using their frameworks, etc. So it might be that we actually we get a sort of bid and tender management bit with your really sort of crunchy end staff looking at how we do this and work with people to take things through. You know, and sort of have a session, a very practical session. It'd be nice if we could do it in person, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Actually do a really practical session, taking people through how to really make the most of those to position themselves well. But that might be good. Mark Wigan, did you want to say something?
No. No.
Simon spotted
Sorry.
that you unmuted and
no. Private message. It was a private message.
I'm glad well, that's the point though, actually, is that these things you are meant to be seeing, you can spot in there. Because for instance, I can see Gordon Smith from the Northwest Aerospace Alliance, because they'll be looking at opportunities for aerospace firms to diversify into this field. You've got Paula Gill from Business Information and UK Circle of Life looking again to help people diversify. You've got our team from Chamber Low Carbon. So mentioning all over the show these opportunities that where all of you are positioning your rail supply chains to be more green and low carbon. So we can help you funnel to loads and loads of low carbon technology deliverers who can work in there. We've got people like Alex Hooley on from Burnley Council, who will be thinking of their manufacturers and routing them into this. So it is hopefully this is the kind of networking you would do if we were stood outside having cups of coffee. Any questions for our Network Rail duo, anybody? That's good to hear, thank you very much. So hopefully that was all clear, there'll be questions. Thank you very much to both of you. I'm going to bring Martin back in from Employment and Skills. Martin, how can we help drive the next generation into this sector? Because we've got all of these opportunities coming. What can we do to help you and help us, if you see what I mean?
First of all, I think it's all very positive in terms of the opportunities coming down the track. Sorry, I couldn't resist the coming down the track. It was an open goal. I'm sorry.
I usually get the one about my learning.
But in terms of what Robin was mentioning, it's all very positive, particularly in terms of the local companies that have been recruited for the project. You look in, obviously 103 companies, 74% of those are local businesses, SME businesses. Yeah. And also in terms of the social value, which will obviously drive requirements for skills development and employment opportunities for local businesses and through local businesses. But it's interesting to know what Robin was saying about potential skill shortages there as well. From a LEP's perspective, it'd be very interesting to know what the projected skills requirements are going to be. And there's various different projects which are kicking off around the Northwest, but it'd be worthwhile getting a gauge on what those were, so we're able to inform and shape provision locally, and to ensure that there are sufficient people to ensure that the levelling up investment is retained within the Lancashire economy as far as humanly possible.
Definitely, if you think about how much investment we're doing with rail, so you've heard from two from Northern Powerhouse Rail and Network Rail, we're doing significant works now across the whole of the North, and we're all going in the same pot of people, so we're going to have to really bring on the next generation, and with new technology like ETCS. So we're going to, we don't know that we're in this country, so we need to bring on the skills to understand ETCS. But it'll probably be in by the time I've retired, but.
And also young people generally, they're not fully aware of all the opportunities that are available in the rail sector as well. I mean, it's probably similar to construction. Everybody thinks of construction as being bricklaying, plumbing, that kind of thing, hands-on trades, but there's a proliferation of opportunities there in terms of careers, and it'd be worthwhile being able to map those out to young people that are currently in the position of taking their options now, or selecting their options, and they can get a clear idea of the apprenticeship opportunities and the pathways that are in front of them.
Yeah, I think before 200 a year, don't we, Karen?
Yeah, that's right. And before COVID, I was part of Women in Rail, so I'm part of Women in Rail, and just looking at opportunities to show young women out there, and we can do this throughout, where we show them the opportunities that exist within Network Rail and what you can do. So that we took a group of girls from a school that were very close to Manchester through Lancashire Partnership to just explain to them. So I explained about what you can do. That you don't just have to be a train driver. There's lots of opportunity on the railway. And they were amazed. So there's a lot more we can do around that, and we promote a lot of the stuff, but we want to work with with yourselves to show what Network Rail does and what the industry does as well.
And I think it's about selling our story so much, but it is, I've been in Network Rail as a graduate, and as a female in Network Rail in 13 years, and I've developed so much in this company, and there's so many opportunities that we should be talking about these stories out there to really try and bring people into our industry.
It's something we can take forward, and you can imagine, especially if we were all actually able to be in the same place, we could do something where we have the physical supply chain in the morning on the heavy engineering side, because there's a lot of heavy engineering in here, but then you could move on to do the kind of supply chain which you might need for the station building side, because that's a different one. And we've heard both from yourselves and from Tim those station building pieces are happening right now. They're not even mid-2020s. They are right now contracts we can get into. And then you could do a skills piece later on in the afternoon where you bring the colleges together. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. And the way that's been articulated, it takes time for people to get qualifications to be able to understand how to work in a railway. You know, it's highly procedurally driven. It's a very safety critical environment. I think the issue that we have, and I will certainly see it with a lot of companies, is, you know, show us the rabbit. So show us the work, and we're prepared to put the investment in. And I think, you know, for NPR, getting over the line in March is really vital, because the view is the taps need to then be turned on so we can get that spade in the ground. We can complete our program by sort of around 2040, and it's very diverse as well. It is not only new stations that are planned, it's brand new lines. So apart from, you know, HS2 and the great work that they're doing, we're looking for our brand new lines up here in the north of England, and it does take thousands of people at a peak around the sort of 2030 area to be able to deliver these programs of work. So Network Rail, sort of business as usual, maintenance, renewals, some enhancement works, but predominantly the enhancement works is going to be NPR for the next 3 to 4 control periods in the north of England.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. You
really
won't build it otherwise.
Really serious forward investment going to happen that's worth our businesses going into this area, and worth our colleges really working in partnership with all of you to develop the courses that are going to churn out the right students for you. Because I know Burnley College are on as well, aren't you here? If you want to say anything, do just stick your hand up and we'll call you in. But there are so many opportunities from the skills side through all of the building side. We need our companies to be taking advantage of these and you know, getting the money into the area from these contracts.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the other thing I always said was to see, I mean, I know of course it's not in Lancashire, but to see the new college at Doncaster, where a £25 million investment in a new building and all set up there. And, you know, quite honestly, it absolutely fell over, because businesses weren't prepared to put people through there and a fantastic training facility, because they couldn't see the work. And I think, you know, Dave, when he came on earlier, boom bust. If you don't start your designs and get them through the door halfway through the control period prior to doing the work, it's not going to happen until about year 3. And you have these cycles since privatization that have caused a lot of issues to the supply chain. And I think, you know, as Denise warmly welcomed there, you know, to stop this sort of boom and bust nonsense that's gone on, and to actually have that steady pipeline. And Network Rail, you know, and ourselves, we can only have a steady pipeline if the investment and the government is putting the money in. And the government does get nervy, because, you know, we've seen a lot of programs whereby they have overspent, or they continue to be overspent, and nobody ever says what's the value for money piece. So I think a continuum of work drives those costs down, because people can invest in the latest technology, in the right people being able to deliver these schemes that are able to keep pushing work out day in, day out, and understanding exactly what they are doing. You know, it's no good having an overhead line scheme where here's £1 billion, please start. Well, how many bridges have I got to lift? What's in the cess at the side of the track? What's the overhead line system? And the NPR were very much trying to drive out the risks really early, so we don't have numbers sort of shooting for the stars, and we're not in a position to ask the government to be able to fund these. Let's just get it right from the start. None of this is rocket science. We've been doing it for 200 years, so let's make sure that we carry on up here, and particularly with this northern projects, as I said, and deliver it right, deliver it first time and safely.
Absolutely. Gordon from the Northwest Aerospace Alliance. Please come in.
Hi, Miranda.
Hi.
Just a slightly cross-cutting suggestion is that the automotive industry have a thing called the national manufacturing competitiveness levels. And the aerospace industry is aligned to that with a program called SC21, Supply Chain 21. And the rail sector is supposed to be also adopting that way back in 2016. And the key thing about that is all about supply chain development. And if you, it allows you to do incremental improvements rather than just these big capital programs. So there's an opportunity perhaps if you're wanting to encourage new suppliers into the rail sector supply chain, it's a way of engaging them to actually recognize their improvement. And also because if you adopted, say, NMCL, you have the benefit of access to the aerospace and automotive learning curves, and indeed those companies, because obviously a really major thing is actually your supply chain and its reliability and its deliverability to improve, to deliver incremental performance. So just a suggestion, because I noticed that supply chain improvement programs weren't mentioned in these big capital programs, but obviously there's an ongoing procurement program in each of those major programs, and this is an opportunity to perhaps get companies involved in a more ongoing way. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Great.
Go on, Denise.
No, great. Thank you, Gordon. Really helpful. Hadn't actually heard of NMCL, but I should know it. So I will get on Google and have a look at it. But thank you, really helpful, because we're looking at new ways of doing things, and the rail industry will have one lens. So it's great when you can look at manufacturing or look at aerospace or auto, whatever there is out there. There's other industries as well as rail, and you can teach us how to do different things, And even during COVID, we had lemonade bottle factories making some of our PPE, and we found how to do things differently during COVID. And what I don't want to lose in our region is tapping into that to that innovation that actually we absolutely need to make this industry change. So thank you, really, really helpful.
No, it's great. It is that innovation that, like you say, that sets us apart. As was said much earlier, this was the cradle of the Industrial Revolution, and we've been flexibly going from one industry to another ever since. And we've got businesses we've already heard of today who are working in automotive, aerospace, nuclear, and could well be in rail or already in rail. And we want to make sure that our industries locally are taking advantage of every opportunity to go into really profitable and long-term contracts like you're talking about here. This is business that everyone needs to be grabbing with both hands, and we want to help facilitate that. So I haven't got any more questions coming forward, so I'm just going to go through the process of wrapping up. So first of all, to say thank you very much to all of our speakers, to Andrew and Robin and Mike, Tim, Denise and Karen. And it's been excellent to hear from all of you about this sector and how we the opportunities, but also the openness. This is a sector that we've heard right from the politicians down to the leaders of supply chain effort want to work with local companies, with SMEs. They've given it every clue as to how to get into that. And we will take that forward. We'll make sure we're telling you the information about the supply chain portals and the events to tap into those. We'll be a conduit for getting that to you. We'll try and work with Martin and people on the skills development side and the colleges to link them in to make sure the future employees are coming. And we're always there on the political front to try and help you get those bills through and get the business arguments behind them in any way we can. So just lastly, to tell you some future things to watch out for that the Chamber's doing. We've got a whole panoply of online events, sadly back to purely online now for the foreseeable future. We've got Lunge and Learn on the 5th of November, if you need to move off your sofa, very much like I need to. We've got a mock disciplinary investigation with Forbes solicitors on the 11th of November. And that's enough to send chills down your spine when you listen to it. And we did one of those live in Burnley, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. It was very intense. So hopefully it will be just as enjoyable online. Then on the 18th of November, our Health and Safety Forum, looking at fire safety. 25th of November, Construction Connections. 26th of November, Adam Marshall in conversation with Philip Hammond. That might be quite fiery, actually, thinking about that. I'm chairing an event on Powering Up Lancashire, which is on the 18th of November. And that is a link that Debbie can also send out to you. And that is another sector where exactly the kind of businesses on this call could go into in terms of really building the infrastructure to come, and also of the innovations in the whole of the energy supply sector. It's going to be Electricity Northwest speaking, and they are putting £2 billion into the Northwest over the next few years. And a lot of that is about building the infrastructure. So Debbie will circulate that information as well. So do come to that event. And just lastly, to say that throughout the whole of the coronavirus crisis, we've seen so many businesses stepping up and going above and beyond what anyone would have expected in terms of putting themselves out to support the community and the local economy. And the British Chambers of Commerce and all of the chambers around the country have created UK Business Heroes to just really point out those companies and say thank you to those tip of the iceberg for putting yourselves out and really supporting the whole of your community during the crisis. And we have 15 local business heroes in Lancashire, and you'll see press releases around this soon, those of you who are our regular contacts. But one I know is in the room at least, which is PDS Engineering, and Annette is with us. And I haven't looked at the list. Simon, shout quickly if there's someone else in the room I should be flagging up, but it's only Annette that I've seen while we're here. But thank you to all of those companies who really supported each other. As you say, the lemonade companies that were making PPE, and all of those companies that have really worked together to support our economy and our industries. Thank you very much to all of our rail supply chain companies for being here. It's a sector that we in East Lancs want to really take advantage of going forward. And lastly, and most importantly, thank you to all of you, our businesses in the area and our audience. And we hope that you take advantage of this and keep our excellent manufacturing and industrial base in Lancashire thriving throughout these most difficult times. Thank you everybody for taking part. Good afternoon.
Thanks for watching this Chamber Live video from the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce. If you've enjoyed this content, then you might enjoy some of the other content that's on the screen now. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel.